Welcome to another episode of Archetype Support I Want. We are gonna talk about A to Z or more the lesser versions. Or maybe. So let's get into it. What are A to Z monsters? A series of level 4 normal monsters and Union Light Machine monsters. As they can combine to summon more powerful fusion monsters, and they were used by Seto Kaiba and Chess Princeton, and not the most highest forms that came out in the past years, but XYZ-Dragon Cannon and V2C. And these are, in quotation marks, the final forms. And they are also powerful in between forms, but let's get into a few of them. The ones on screen. You have AtoZ, basically the absolute boss monster you may want to summon, which is the fusion from ABC Buster, one of the most broken cards at its time, which once per turn can just banish a card during a player's turns and negates that card effect that banishes, and you can just tribute it to just get back the fusion material monsters, which are 3, and it's really easy to summon. You can just banish the cards from field or graveyard, and you get a lot of materials for XYZ plays. I mean XYZ for XYZ summon or Link summon and whatnot. XYZ-Dragon Cannon, which is also not on screen, is old relic of a card. It needs also 3 monsters, but they have to be on the field. You have to banish them, like this one. That one previously, you don't need polymerization. And you can discard cards to destroy cards on your opponent's side in the field. It's not once per turn, but it's a destruction effect, and it's much harder to summon. It has no negation. On A to Z is basically these two combined, and you need to banish both of them from the field, from what I can read. So it cannot be summoned like ABC itself would be during a player's turn. And when your opponent activates a card effect, you can discard one card and negate the activation, and if you did destroy the card, you can banish this card and tribute this. You can banish this card and special summon its fusion materials back and gets the effects off. So it's a pretty good monster. I used to play this in an Ojama build because Ojamas really support makes this kind of deck actually work. I don't know how well it works in the modern formats. It's been almost a decade if I think about it. It's surprisingly consistent. I never thought you can just slap Ojamas, Armed Dragon, and XYZ in ABC XYZ into one deck and make it work. And this is why probably the next 2 cards also work. We have in V2C Dragon Catapult Cannon. I'm gonna use this name what is written on it because of it's much easier to pronounce. It needs XYZ-Dragon Cannon, which we talked about, and VW Tiger Catapult, which is just a 2 material fusion monster, which you need to banish the materials from the field. And once per current turn, you discard a card to change the battle position of a monster of your opponent. Pretty underwhelming effect by modern standards. Even for its time, it was okay, but now it's completely unviable. V2C needs these 2 monsters banished. Must be special summoned, obviously, through that method. Once per turn, you can target one of your opponent's card, banish it, and when this battles a monster, you can change the battle position of the monster you're fighting. And flip effects are not activated, but nobody uses flip effects in the modern format anymore, so it doesn't really matter. And it has a banishing effect, but in a sense it's kinda worse than XYZ-Dragon Cannon, because XYZ-Dragon Cannon can get rid of more cards, but this is a non-destruction removal, and which still targets but doesn't negate. So take it as you will, you just get 200 more attack on your body, and it's better than VW, but not better than XYZ in my mind, but that's its niche uses, but I don't think the effort is worth it. But you can use this card to summon Armed Dragon Catapult Cannon, and yes, you can actually summon this card reliably, but the question is, do you want to summon this? And you can summon this after V2C has been summoned once and Armed Dragon level 7 one summoned once. It doesn't matter how they were summoned, they have to be summoned once in the duel, and then you can banish them from your field or graveyard and get out Armed Dragon Catapult Cannon. And this card is kinda confusing. It's unaffected by your opponent's card effects. Oh wait, your opponent cannot activate cards that banish. Once per turn, quick effect, you can banish one card in your deck or extra deck. Banish all cards in that your opponent controls and in their graveyard, which is quite powerful. Yeah, we are not gonna try focusing on effects to summon it, but indirectly we might do that. And so what spot did we get to get reliably out? I kind of pointed out Ojamas already. You have Ojamification, where you can just banish your Ojama cards in your graveyard, field, or hand to just summon all the fusion materials for ABC. ABC doesn't really need this, but XYZ really need this. And this card doesn't have a once per turn restriction, so you can just swarm the field, and in one turn, if you can, Ojamas really get materials easy. And there are a lot of cards where you discard, and with Oja, with a spell card Oja Magic, you can just add all your the 3 vanilla Ojama cards to your deck, add from your deck to your hand, and use this card, banish them, then shuffle them back to the deck by banishing this card, and get a free draw, banish the monsters you summoned with this card to get XYZ-Dragon Cannon. Maybe you draw another copy, do the same thing, and obviously ratios is a problem. This spell you probably run at 3. You need some discard effects. I think if you summon XYZ-Dragon Cannon or ABC Dragon Buster, you can just use multiple Oja Magic effects per turn, and the recycled Ojama trio, you can just get them back quite easily. And it doesn't have to be the Ojama trio monsters, but with Oja Magic, you recycling shenanigans, you pretty much get these cards out really reliably, but I'm not sure how effective it is in the modern format, especially with Ash Blossom being everywhere and your opponent like making more aggressive plays maybe. We have Union's Ramble. I don't know how I feel about this card. Target up to 3 of your banished Light Machine normal monsters and Light Machine Union monsters, special summons them. During a player's turn, except the card turn this card is in your graveyard, you can banish it from the graveyard and target one of the banished monsters and return them to your hand. You can only activate one Union Scramble. I guess it's okay. It's a pretty good effect for back in the day, but I don't know how it is for the modern format. It's always nice. Dimension fusion is banned, but back in the day, like you just bench your XYZ materials for the lesser fusions and just use dimension fusion to get these big boys out and just bench them again for the fusion summon and whatnot. And with Union Scramble, you can just replicate that effect without risking it to get banned, like different dimension or transforms a different dimension and dimension fusion. XYZ combine, if your like machine union monster is banished, except that damage step, you can just special summon X and head cannon, Y dragon head, or C metal tank from your deck. Return one fusion monster you control to the extra deck, and then you can summon 2 different variations of this card. So this card kinda intends you to give you the option to play the lesser version, which have outdated effects like X, Y, XC, and YC, and still get to summon the big boy, and probably the way it would have been intended without worrying too much about what you have done. And also in the modern formats, you probably don't want to summon the lesser versions because the lesser versions are outclassed by almost every XYZ monster, which is ironic because these are XYZ monsters before XYZ monsters were still a good card, but still not enough. Still need far more. I mean, it's no upgrade over the Ojamification. Ojama simulation method. Ojama simulation method is just too good. XYZ combine is okay. You might want to run this. Without Ojamas, I don't know how you can really make a reliable build. I will try to give my input, but we will see. Problem here's why Tiger Catapult, so you can see how it looks like. Too many materials. Especially the bigger monsters, VWXYZ-Dragon Buster is good enough. If you want to play XYZ-Dragon Cannon, you want to use AtoZ, but probably you don't want to run that. So the problem is, if you get Union support, then ABC Dragon Buster, who is already good, gets even better. So there's less incentive to use the bigger other monsters regardless. So if you want new support, probably want support that the older cards, the training builds for older cards needs to be more powerful for you to benefit more from it. Lesser material monsters are bad. XE, X, Y, and YC, and even VW are just really underwhelming. I think VW, especially, like, if it wasn't for V2C, you probably won't run this in any deck. And the fusion monster you see on screen. XYZ is too hard to get out, and exclusive support is not reliable. And like I said, VW is underpowered, and V2C effect is too weak for a 5 material fusion. Okay, it shows 2 materials, but one material is a 2 material fusion, and the other one is a 3 material fusion, which basically means it's a 5 material fusion. A few solutions: adapt some of the cards with more balanced effects, so people don't abuse the extra deck for things they probably shouldn't. More lesser fusions with better effects and easier summon conditions. I tried to make in between fusions, but I don't know what kind of naming is it. At first it kind of worked like X VX Tiger Head or Tiger Cannon could be a fusion, but I couldn't figure out what kind of effects I would give them. And then if you go to V, do you take since V is attachment and the normal monsters are the head pretty much of the fusion. Do you go for the order of the letters? So do you go with VX or do you go with XV? And that kind of weirded me out, so I kind of dropped the idea, and I just cannot come up with fusion monsters for every freaking letter. And I can come up with names maybe, but not with good effects where you can say, okay, that's actually fun. I'm gonna put this in my X deck. And thinking about like, and probably VX fusion would be really nice because these two are normal monsters and they will kinda slow you down. So it would be nice if they have more utility besides relying too much on the union monsters, which really need the other monsters to get going. So here are a few adaptations from anime cards used by chess with altered effects. Different dimension hanger, which you can banish up to 3 union monsters level 4 or lower from your deck. And if you summon a monster which has its name written in the Union Monsters card text, you can just special summon the Union Monsters. So what would happen is if you summon X Head Cannon, you can just summon Y Dragon Head and Z Metal Panzer simultaneously. They cannot attack this turn, but you can banish them to get XYZ-Dragon Cannon. And you can do all that. You could technically just summon X Head Cannon, get the fusion materials for that, fuse. Then you activate maybe Monster Reborn, get Y Tiger Head, same turn you get W Catapult. Wing Catapult gets that out, and then you have 2 fusion monsters, and that's easy and V2Z. Alternatively, I really like to keep this generic Union monster support because that way you can still let something like Darkblade or old Union monsters get a shine. So if you play Darkblade, you can just summon Pitch Black Dragon. Actually, if I think about it, maybe there doesn't need to be a level restriction. Because how many Union monsters mention other monsters and have a broken effect that are a level higher. So I would like to see maybe summon and kill you with this card. But kill you is bad, nobody is gonna play it, but it would be nice still to be able to get that card out. And this wasn't this card was made, it appeared in the anime in the games before Synchro was a thing, so it would be nice to restrict the extra deck except for fusion monsters, because the XYZ-Dragon monsters are extra deck monsters, and also Darkblade has a fusion monster, so restricting it to just fusions is fair enough, I think. Then we have Dimensional Catapult. I kinda screwed up the effect. In the anime, it just let you special summon V2Z from the graveyard, but negate its effect, but it does piercing damage. And what I did is you can just summon it from the extra deck as well, but I should have added ignorant summoning condition as well. If this equip card is removed, you have to remove this card from the field, and it's a once per turn and hard once per turn effect. This is at least the idea I have. And back to custom cards I made. I tried to take a few screenshots from the anime, but it didn't work out too well. So we have XYZ combine, so I made VW combine, which when activated you can just search out XYZ combine, and once per turn you can special V Tiger Jet or VW Catapult from your deck, and you can return one monster you control to the extra deck, special summon up to 2 of the banished monsters with different names, amongst from the Tiger Jet and the Wing Catapult. You can only use each effect once per turn of this card. Then there's Thunder Summon, and the name Thunder Summon is just a reference to the anime scenes that happened, and because Manjume's nickname is Thunder, and he just had to call this summon Thunder Summon, so I just named it after that. For the summon of VW Tiger Catapult, XYZ-Dragon, or V2C, you can just banish the materials also from your hand or graveyard. During damage calculation, you can negate the damage of one attack by just sending one light machine union monster from your deck to the graveyard, and then you take no battle damage once per turn effect. Maybe you can just extend it to just level 4 machine monsters, like machine monster, and that should seal the deal as well. But yeah, I didn't think about it when I was making this. And finally, I decided to at least add one new fusion monster, so I decided to add AtoZ Dragon Catapult Buster, which is the fusion between ABC Dragon Buster and VW Tiger Catapult. So it has a similar summoning condition as ABC Dragon Buster instead of V2C, and once per turn you can just use the effect similar to ABC Dragon Buster, but you don't have to discard a card. And during area player's turn you can float to the materials bag. I hope that you like this small support video. It may not be as detailed, it may not be in a way that, oh no, AtoZ is way easier to summon, but I focused more on V2C instead. Maybe I should have called it a V2C video, but I kind of wanted to make V2C also worth playing. And maybe Konami surprises us by making a fusion of all the letters, but I don't know what you would call it. Maybe to reliably make that card work, they have to make a triple fusion. ABC Dragon Buster plus VW Tiger Catapult plus XYZ-Dragon Cannon. But I don't know if this is gonna be a thing. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video, and you will see each other next